What if you got with him, you've been with him for like a significant amount of time, for years, y'all married, and he ends up telling you that he has a child. He did not tell you during the time that you were dating and got married. Would that be a
Child, it's so
deal
normal these
breaker?
days.
Would
I
that
feel
be a
like
deal breaker
that's so
for you?
normal.
It's
It
a
seems so
joke.
normal.
It's a joke.
So,
It's
so
not. It
your
happened
man,
to me.
Oh,
Married.
enough.
We weren't
Oh,
married. We weren't married. We were dating for a few months, and I was in my early 20s, so doing some immature things. So you hit that Google, that Facebook, the social media. You take a little deep dive into what's going on.
Girls
Um,
still do that today in their 40s. Like, what you talking about?
I don't do that anymore. Um, but so I was like, peeping around or whatever, and I see somebody on his post talking about a child. Now, here's where I messed up. I did not look at the dates. I was so shocked by the comment that I was like, you've never mentioned having a child. And so I brought it up to him, and he was like, oh yeah, and I was like, well, when were you planning on telling me? And he was like, oh, well, I was going to introduce y'all at this point. I'm like, so you were going to take the risk of me having an adverse reaction in front of your child? And then he let me know that his child was 17. And I was like, that's almost a grown adult. Like,
You got
so,
a grown.
yeah, after that experience, like, that's it. I'm out. If you feel like you need to hide your child, I'm out. I can't.
True.
I mean, because that's your
True.
child. Like, why are you embarrassed by
Yes.
your child? That should be the first thing that comes out of your mouth. Like, you should be proud. Like, that's weird.
Yep. I
But people
think
do
also
that.
something that will make me consider again, because I've been in this situation, when someone doesn't mention that has deal with drugs. Like, to me, that's a no. It's people usually that has abused drugs, they usually tend to, and I'm talking about not someone that just experimented with it, but like abuse and it was in it. They tend to recover for quite some time and then just go back to it. So no, that's
Imagine
something I
going to
would.
a party and your man goes to the back room and you walk in and he's just like,
You wrong for that. Come on, man. You're wrong. I think also
it happens in California.
I think to also in the same vein that Saida said, anyone with a criminal history that has hidden it from me,
Yep.
that's gotta be a no-no, because that messes with so many things in our future that I just can't, I don't think I can handle as a person. I just don't think.
I think it would depend on what the crime is. For me,
I mean, if you're defending your mom or
it might
like your
depend on.
Yeah.
sister,
So interesting.
well,
Mistaken a ride or die shit. She talking
No,
about
it
it
Interesting
depends on the
story.
crime.
it
I
would.
had.
Goddamn, girl.
I just
If it was for selling, I'm not gonna lie. If it was for selling, back when I was growing up, that's what a lot of guys around the neighborhood did. So I don't think that being older and then hearing, oh yeah, when I was young, I did this and got caught. That wouldn't necessarily bother me or be a deal breaker, just because, like I said, that was the environment that I grew up in. So that was kind of the norm. It's almost safe to say that I probably would have been more shocked, by somebody who never did it. You know what I mean? So that's why I say it would depend. It would definitely depend. If it was like some heavy duty, something where they did like 10, 15 years, then that's something different. But if it was like, a corner boy, like, I don't know if that
perhaps,
would have necessarily
perhaps
maybe.
morally I wouldn't feel any kind of way, but think about your future. That man will have a hard time getting a good job, a good career. So how I view it is, okay, yeah, you went to jail for a little bit for selling drugs and you're reformed now and you're good, but you will have a hard time keeping a really good career, a really good job that will be bad for our future. So that's how I think of it personally.
So so I think in terms of like corporate jobs, absolutely, right? But there's still entrepreneurship, there's all of these other, and if we're honest, the skill set transfers, right? Like the what you need to be good at being a corner boy are the same skills that you need to be a good entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think like context is so important to those things, because if it was 15, 20 years ago, well, have you thought about getting a pardon? Are you in the plans of it? Like, what are you doing to, like, do you even know that you can get a pardon and get that scrubbed off of your record? Because some people just don't have the education to know that that's a viable option. So I think it's just more so asking questions around it before formulating what that looks like for your future.
But are you willing to even deal with that? You know, it's like, if this is a guy that you're at least a guy you're freshly dating. I don't know if it's a guy you're totally been with for like 3 years, but if it's a guy you're freshly dating and he's telling you, hey, I got this on my record and now I have to figure out how to scrub it and blah, blah, blah. Are you willing to even deal with something like that?
I will be honest, and I hate that I'm saying this on the internet, but I will be honest, since you specifically asked me the question. I have dated many men with criminal records, and it's always been a vetting question, right? Do you have a criminal record? What is on there? That is the one thing that I will double check, because it is public record, just to make sure like they're being fully honest, because that is something that is important to me. And the conversation is, well, if it was really that long ago, why haven't you done anything to get that off of there? So like, that is something that I ask. And it also, when you ask that question, especially early on, it shows you whether or not they're willing to follow up on it if they didn't know, right? So it's giving them the opportunity to really see, are they really serious about the trajectory that they're taking, or are they just saying these things because it sounds good to you? So it is an interesting vetting opportunity. And if we're really honest, there aren't a whole lot of Black men that have a squeaky clean record, right? Like, when we understand, and yes, I'm in Canada, it is really not that different, and y'all can fight me about it if you want to, is cool. But like, the way the policing system works, and over policing, and people who are, you know, attacked for certain things, there really isn't, right? Like the men who don't have anything on their record are more so an anomaly than they are, even if it was juvenile, right? So
I was with you, Inaz, until that part. I've never dated a man with a record, so I don't know that life.
No.
So again, right? Because I made an important caveat that everybody seemed to fly over, right? Like, when it comes to juveniles, that gets scrubbed when you become an adult, right? So it's still.
I admire that you went through that vetting.
Let me get my holy water out. What is going on here?
Well,
Let's put it into perspective.
And Shan, she knows this person too. We know somebody. He was in the street, and right now he is what everyone would consider a high value man, public figure, all making good money. So
CEO of a major company.
Yeah. So
I was like, those are very few. I mean, we don't need to highlight those.
I don't think, but that's
what we know that, but we're just saying it. We went
not. That's
background.
It's not.
Let me. This is a moment in time. We gotta address this.
No, they're not few. Hang on. So Trigger Mike, they're not few and far between, right? Because what I said earlier is that the skill set and that lifestyle is very transferable over to entrepreneurship. Like they're far apart, right? So there are a lot of men who are great entrepreneurs.
I absolutely agree with you, being a former somebody myself. But after they've been convicted and they get out of jail, that's not the life most of them are living.
True.
Now, this is a moment in history because this is the first terrorist comment I've ever heard you say, Inaz.
Trigger was loaded.
Most Black men don't have good. Let's put it into perspective, because this is something that women do a lot.
Specifically, my environment.
Okay.
The most Black men that young Black women are interested in don't have clean records. That is, most Black men, period, don't have records at all.
So
at all, most.
Wait, hang on. Give me 1 second to just cook with Trigger Mike, right? 1 second. So Trigger, like, you were very much so a statistics guy, right? Like, you like numbers to substantiate arguments, right? When you take a look at the percentages of the Black population that have been incarcerated versus the general percentages of the Black population, what do those numbers look like?
It's higher than other ethnic groups, but it's still not most.
No. That I'm not talking about in comparison to other ethnic groups. I'm talking about number of Black people, because the statistics are usually around the U.S. number of Black people that have been incarcerated versus the number of Black people that live in the U.S.
Damn, I haven't seen it in a while. It's like 1 in. Darn, I haven't seen it, but it's like 1 in 6 have been to jail and or been convicted of a misdemeanor or something like that. But it's not, it's not half. It's not 3/4 and nothing like. You said most. That's when I was like,
Inaz, you are a gorgeous woman. You should not be with no dude that had a.
that's how they like them.
I don't think that she's talking about. That's kind of like.
I'm sorry, I just have to say that. Like,
look.
Nope.
You should not even be. Once he says he has a record, he's out the door. I'm so sorry. That's just how I roll.
Clarify, because like we're assuming that somebody who has a record is going to be a Pookie or a Ray Ray, right? Like those are not the caliber of men that I choose to vet or get to know or date, right? Like they're not. But I think a lot of women would be really shocked at like the number of like high value men, right? Because that's the trigger word, right? The number of high value men that have criminal records. Not every man I've ever dated has had a criminal record, but there are a lot of them that make substantial incomes, that have decent character, that show up in their communities, that are really.
Are they the El Chapos of the penitentiary?
No, they're like the strip club owners, the nightclub owners.
Not true.
No, but
Look.
Those men.
all of them are based on times.
They own record labels.
Y'all are also assuming that it has a lot to do with crimes that are like corner boy stuff. I know, like, guys, when I was in college, that it was a big, huge, like, credit card scamming thing that they would do in college.
White collar crime.
And then they would get caught for that, and that would be a criminal record. You know what I'm saying?
Or you know what? I had a friend who actually got caught, worked at dealers and tried to give people clothes free, and he ended up getting a background because you giving out, college students.
Right. So it would be stupid stuff like that. Not everybody is like those, like, real,
I'll be looking at people differently because my ex used to do some scamming shit. And he was telling me about like how he was watching this old lady's inheritance money. He was watching it for months. And he was watching that shit for months. And he finally made and he funneled that shit into his
different.
I know. And I'm just like, damn, like you did that to her. Like, what if she was
on that real
to somebody? Right. That to me is like effed up. And I'm like, damn, now I'm looking at you funny because like they was probably gonna leave that over to somebody, and you done jacked up her whole. You done took $24,000 out of her account.
I think like how a lot of
too, right? I think sometimes like drunken disorderly conduct, right? Like you were involved in a bar fight. Like sometimes it's really not that extreme either, right? Like sometimes it's just one thing on their record, and it's just like a circumstance that they can actually explain. Not like dope boys are not my thing, right? So like there are men out there that have like one thing on their criminal record, but it's still not a clean record, right? Like let's be really honest, right? So that's the point I was getting at. Y'all are really making me sound crazy out here.
And I think it's kind of
sound crazy. I was just shocked that you gave them a chance because
I know she's so pretty. Like
I was gonna say, like down for it, but she's lit as hell. Any blemish on a guy, I would be like, next. Goodbye.
Let me just say, I think we need to emphasize the fact that Mistaken and I have a mutual friend who may have made some bad decisions in his youth. When I tell you he is the man today, like he is not one person he does not know, one circle that he is not a part of, any secret society in Atlanta he is a part of. He is the man, and I'm talking about in a legit way, not in a dope boy way, in a legit way. He is a CEO of a major company. Well, was here in Atlanta, now somewhere else. But this dude,
he was actually they were about to do a documentary on his life because of that. So what don't
knock it just because
that's what I'm saying. For me, what I'm saying is not, because sometimes you got to look at the environment that people are from. And like I said, it doesn't mean that everybody's a Pookie or Ray Ray because they have a criminal record. Even I look at, if you look back at my record, like I had a juvenile. A juvenile. But it was for fighting. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't nothing, but that was the environment I grew up in. So that I'm not, well, it was the norm. It wasn't something that would have been very surprising, but it was closed once I turned 18. You know what I'm saying? So to sit there and say I would disqualify somebody else because they made a mistake when they were in their youth, I really wouldn't. It wouldn't. It would depend on what it is for
I
me.
just listen to
Yeah.
how a lot of men speak, and they disqualify women on what they hear their friends, their homeboys talk about you as a woman. So
Child, they
I'm not
just talk
saying that's
about
the
you
right-
on just the pettiest.
I'm not saying that's the right way to go, but I am saying that your past says more about you than your perceived future, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. All you have is what happened in the past. So if this is a person that you don't quite know and you're just dating like preliminary, I just don't think learning this parts of information, I just don't think is wise to continue with someone who has a record personally.
All right. So let's look at the US for a second. It says we estimate that 3% of the total US adult population and 15% of the African American adult male population has ever been to prison. People with felony convictions account for 8% of all adults and 33% of African American adult male population. That is pretty high compared to other groups. But 67% of black men ain't got no damn record. That is not most. That's why I'm like, what? But what I will say is that I'm with Shan on this. There, you do have to look at the type of criminal record. Okay, I got a homeboy now who finally got married, and the woman he was trying to get married to before found out. So if I told y'all that somebody had something called a justifiable homicide on their record, what would you say?
If it was just
They had a good fucking reason to do it.
Exactly.
So,
He told that to his girlfriend. She acted like she was okay with it. They get in a legit argument, like no hands being thrown or nothing. She throws that in his face and leaves him. I'm sorry, his fiance. They had already proposed. And it's like, you just flying off the handle. He's like, dude, this was our first bad argument. And she act like I was a damn killer. Well, these are the type of charges that people get in the military. So y'all don't know that if a dude orders somebody to be killed at war, he gets that homicide on his record because a kid is that's collateral damage or something. Like, it's really bad out here. There's a lot of veterans out here with stuff like that on their record. So he has what's called a justifiable homicide, where he called in the attack. He's the one who called it in. He's like, get out of the spot. There's a little boy there. Don't look. But if that little boy dies on his orders, he's the one who gets the body. So there's all type of things. Yeah, I'm aware that
that's justifiable. I would be okay with it because I would assume that it was a situation in which he had no choice. I would probably feel a little safer.
Yeah.
I know.
You mean like it's not intentional? It's not intentional.
The way you think.
It's not intentional, right?